Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, hoping to divert your attention to an RPG that I feel no one's really talking about, and that RPG is known as Greedfall. This comes from the developers of Bound by Flame and Technomancer, Spiders. Now, I was not a fan at all of Bound by Flame, and I thought Technomancer was a game where pretty much Spiders was their own worst enemy. They have great ideas for their titles, it's just their execution. But when it comes to Greedfall, it seems to be their most ambitious title yet, and it looks to be shaping up quite well. Now, I think the big reason why no one's really talking about Greedfall is because this game is coming on September 10th, which is right when the holiday busyness starts to pick up, and that's only 3 days before one of the biggest launches of 2019 being Borderlands 3. So there's some steep competition for Greedfall. However, as an RPG-centric channel, and as someone who loves playing RPGs, I thought that this game would be up a lot of yours alleys, so I wanted to talk about it, give you guys a general synopsis of this game in a quick video because I've been pumping out a lot of longer form content and I'm a big fan of respecting the audience's time, so I wanted to give you something a little more shorter, a little more concise today. So let's get into Greedfall, which is an action RPG, clearly, as you can tell by a lot of the material and the clothing in this game, colonial inspired, but it has a fantasy touch to it. So you'll see people in colonial outfits casting these incredible spells like pulling trees up out of the ground, shooting fire, disappearing into mist and then reappearing. It's such a cool looking universe. So the general premise of this game is that you are arriving at a brand new continent, and within said continent there are tons of factions for you to meet. And there are reputations within said factions which are important to the game. You make decisions with who you want to be allied with and who you want to be enemies with. In turn, companions and relationship levels will build, and you can romance companions in this game, unlike, we'll say, for example, the Outer Worlds, which I know a lot of folks were disappointed with. But the main reason you're heading to this brand new continent is because the former place that you were at has a illness that is completely ruining it. So you're searching for new life and you're building up new life on this continent. And furthermore, there are natives on this continent where I think a lot of the magic tends to come from. And so what you're almost having here is Christopher Columbus, the fantasy RPG, which I know sounds a little ridiculous, but I actually like where this game's heading in the terms of tone, atmosphere, its focus on building your character, because it's not just seemingly in the world and in the story, but also when you begin the game, there's someone who's painting a picture of you, and then it goes right to the character creator, which seems to have a lot of detail tied to it, but more importantly to me is the class structure. So you have magic, technical, and warrior. Each class comes with starting skills and recommended attributes / talents. And then you head over to the skill tree, which is equally as overwhelming. There's an equipment menu, which, yes, will bring in a lot of options. There are unique assets for a lot of the weapons and armor, which for you guys out there, you know how important that is to me, and I know it's important to a lot of you out there, so I want to emphasize that because we see a lot of developers get lazy and not make the unique assets for special weapons and armor, but this game seems to have that under control. Furthermore, those weapons and armor are customizable, so you can, for example, change the hilt on your sword or the blade on your sword or the pauldron on your armor. Stuff like that can be changed up. You can see potions draped across your chest. I like that little attention to detail there. That customization is always good. I'm not as sold on customization and crafting as I used to be many years back because it's in so many games, but it's good to see it's here, accompanied by all the other wonderful RPG attributes that this game is touting. Now, furthermore, in the gameplay aspect, it is, like I said, an action RPG, so it looks a lot more smooth and enemies look less spongy, which was a big issue in Technomancer. But also, they include an option called Tactical Pause, which, for those who need a comparison, is quite similar to Dragon Age Inquisition. One of the positive things I can say about Dragon Age Inquisition is I really liked how the combat worked, where you had action combat, and then if you had to pause time and decide how you wanted to approach your opponents, you could pick from your spell list, you could pick from your items, you could solo out an opponent, choose what they would be hit with, stuff along those lines, which adds a tactical element to the game, of course, but also lets you slow things down when you're getting swarmed. I think that is a really smart option. It helps separate it from the bunch, and I think it's good for players who are just getting into RPGs, but also, like I said, that tactical element when you're getting attacked by a ton of enemies, it's going to be helpful to have. Lastly, I also noticed when it came to the gameplay that there was a BGS map bar on the top, a very, very scary replication of it because it looked identical. You saw different shapes that were transparent, and as they approached, they filled in. It would discover an area. You guys know, I'm a sucker for that little map marker. I absolutely am. Even as someone who's been grinding a lot of Morrowind, we're 17 hours deep on our live stream from that, and I've been enjoying that in its own rights, but I gotta say, the way Bethesda Game Studios evolved to those map markers and seeing a company take inspiration from that and do something I'd say almost identical to it. Usually we see little spin-offs of it, but this seems identical. I really like it. Now, there is one negative thing I have to point out. One thing that has me, I'd say, sketched out rather, and that's that gameplay is scarce. Very, very scarce and very, very controlled. So if you go to the Focus Home YouTube page, you can find only 15, 20, 25 second top of gameplay clips. And then the only gameplay that came out of E3 this year was through IGN's live stream. Just IGN. No one else, no GameSpot, no other previews. I couldn't find anything to show you guys gameplay in this video, which is part of the reason why it's also shorter. There's not enough fresh footage to keep your attention and to show you guys new cool stuff. So what I've taken away from this is that it seems they're trying to control what's getting out there, but they also seem confident in their product. We just got a 3-minute and 50-second trailer on a gameplay overview explaining the systems in Greedfall, but I feel like they didn't really capitalize on what was available for them to show off at E3. However, there is still Gamescom before this game releases, and Gamescom seems to be ramping up to be something big, so it's possible Greedfall has a bigger presence there. I'm not sure if that would make sense or not, but we'll see in due time. That's just one thing I want people to be wary of, is that this game looks good on the outside. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I want it to be on a lot of people's radar. That's why I'm shouting it out, but just keep this in mind. And I hope you guys found some use of this video, because I'm pretty stoked for this game. I put in my review copy request, fingers crossed. I'd love to get the review game back up and going for you guys to inform you on the latest purchases for these big RPGs. But that'll do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time today. Let me know what you think about Greedfall, whether you've been following it for a while or maybe you're new here and you don't know a thing about Greedfall. What do you think of it now? Let me know down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.